Hello, BookTube. I felt like some of you were owed a facial of the little Fraulein, because she's been either a face in the distance or absent from a lot of these videos. But I thought we'd do the last mail haul of the week. A weird looking assortment of packages here. I'm not sure what to make of any of them. I have a strong vibe off a couple of these that they might be presents. And if 2 packages out of 6 are presents, that's a pretty weird ratio. So let's start off with one of these big vacuum press boat size things so that we can just get it out of the way. Okay, this is by Christopher Ketchum. Have we already seen this? I can't remember. I think we might have already seen this. Let's see. This is due soon, I think. It'd be nice if we had some useful information here. Yes. All right. This is due in a month. This is due in late October, and this is This Land: How Cowboys, Capitalism, and Corruption Are Ruining the American West. Over the last 10 years, as journalist Christopher Ketchum has journeyed around the vast public lands of the intercontinental American West, he has found much of the region degraded by private industry operating at public expense. Livestock grazing, logging, oil and gas drilling, mass industrial tourism, activities that taken together are ruining habitat for wild flora and fauna and compromising the ecological integrity and long-term future of our great commons. And this is his first book. Oh, good. Good for him. Among the many striking revelations in this book, the unreported but widespread manipulation and corruption of federal land management agencies by the industries they're supposed to regulate, the rise of collaborative big green groups hiding behind a facade of environmental stewardship while collaborating with industry to strip resources and destroy public lands, and the unimaginable scope and environmental destruction caused by unregulated grazing of privately owned livestock on public lands throughout the West. Oh my. Oh my. Okay. Alright, so this is going to be a very depressing book. He's coming to Salt Lake City on July 26th. That's a Friday. This is going to be a very depressing book, but it could be a really important one. It sounds like it has overtones of Silent Spring to it. So, okay, so it's a sobering but an interesting beginning. Let's move on here. I don't know really what we're going to get here. There are 2 mystery packages that are obsessing me. So I'm thinking that even though it means doing a box beforehand, we'll save the 2 mystery packages for last, just in case they are indeed something. Here we go with these again. Good Lord. Okay. Once again, the University of Chicago just gives me a piece of paper identifying the book that the piece of paper is tucked inside. I don't actually need that kind of help. I need to know when the book comes out, and that's the one thing that is completely missing from this new slip of theirs. This is Alan Bond and Judy Diamond, and this is Thinking Like a Parrot: Perspectives from the Wild. Quite the cover. Okay, so I don't know anything about this. I don't know when it comes out. I'm assuming that it's out already. I'll have to look it up, but Steve doesn't like doing that. You know, Steve doesn't like doing that. Steve is almost certainly going to write about this book for you, and that my aggregate audience for all of my different venues, quite a few of whom I'd say well over 70% make a point of reading everything I write in any venue. That aggregate audience is pretty big. I guarantee you it would sell out the first printing of this book. And I'm not asking you to pay me for the review. Of course, I'm not asking you to do that, because that would compromise the whole system. But if in light of that system, I really don't want to have to do extra work, right? I mean, anyway, it's not that much work. It's a first world problem. What do you expect from a frail zillennial like I am? So let's see. People form enduring emotional bonds with other animal species, such as dogs, cats, and horses. For the most part, these are domesticated animals, with one notable exception. Many people form close and supportive relationships with parrots, even though these amusing and curious birds remain thoroughly wild creatures. That certainly applies to cats as well. Most cats that I have ever had the misfortune to meet could happily support themselves with hunting, feed themselves with hunting. They would happily do that if they were allowed to. And they don't show a whole lot of affection for humans. It doesn't seem like either side of the domestication bargain has actually worked on cats. But we'll stick with parrots for now. What enables this unique group of animals to form social bonds with people, and what does this mean for their survival? What does that mean? What does that mean, University of Chicago Press? Are you saying that parrots are unique? Are you saying that they're unique in that they are a wild species that forms some deep emotional bonds with humans? Because the first might be true, but the second absolutely is not. We have seen a dozen books on a dozen different species. It's been known to happen. Identifiable personal contact and devotion has been displayed by any number of kinds of animals, any number of them, from wild snakes to wild chimpanzees to wild elephants. so I don't know what you're saying is unique here. I don't. And this book looks beyond much of the standard work on captive parrots to the mischievous, inquisitive, and astonishing vocal parrots of the wild. Focusing on the psychology and ecology of wild parrots, the authors document their distinctive sexual behavior, sophisticated cognition, and extraordinary vocal abilities. Okay, so wow. Okay, full color picture. So this is a natural history of parrots with a slight emphasis on human connection. Interesting. Okay, so we're off to a fine start for nonfiction, and we're getting. Let's see here. What is all this? Oh, right. The Christopher Ketchum book came with a whole bunch of training wheels. Here are some things you might want to talk to him about. Here's some things that we can break down the book for you. Yeah, I'm gonna read it. Okay, I don't really need the training wheels, but that's okay. Maybe other people do. So what is this next one? It's big, whatever it is. Nice and thick. It's an advanced oh, very good. Okay, this comes out on the doorstep of November. This comes out at the very end of October. Don't know how strict an on-sale date that will be. Probably it'll be out in your bookstore sometime in October. This is by Donald Miller, and it is Vicksburg. An enormous new book on the siege of Vicksburg. Okay. Well, we already know this story. Well, you Civil War buffs out there already know this story, because Vicksburg was key. It was the hinge on which the whole Confederacy swung, and taking it was crucial for the war. Everybody knew that ahead of time. Taking it was crucial. It was just really hard to do until Grant did it, and Grant did it in the way that he did everything, which was to throw meat at it, to throw men at it. The one thing that had impeded Union generals who had tried and failed to take Vicksburg before was a tiny amount, even by 19th century standards, a tiny amount of concern over attrition rates. And Grant didn't have any concern at all, not even a tiny amount. He had none, zero, about attrition rates. He just threw living bodies at problems until those problems were ground down and eliminated. And Vicksburg, let's see here. Well, this is an enormous pub sheet. Good Lord. This is a book about the story of the longest and most decisive military campaign of the Civil War, which opened the Mississippi River, split the Confederacy, freed more than 100,000 slaves, sparked a social revolution, and made Grant the most important general of the war. Although Gettysburg is often cited as the war's most important battle, it was Vicksburg that sealed the fate of the Confederacy. Lincoln said that the war could not be won until Vicksburg was taken, and as Vicksburg, Mississippi was the last stronghold of the Confederacy on the Mississippi River, it prevented the Union from using the river for shipping between Union-controlled Midwest and New Orleans and the Gulf of Mexico. The Union tried to take Vicksburg, which sat on a high bluff overlooking the river, but couldn't do it. General Grant moved his army south and joined forces with Admiral Porter, but even together they could not come up with a successful plan. At one point, Grant even tried to build a canal so that the river could be diverted away from Vicksburg. Over the course of the year-long campaign, Grant tried various ways to take Vicksburg and lost thousands of men in unsuccessful attempts. Still, he never gave up and eventually succeeded through one of the oldest forms of warfare known, the siege. Okay. Well, you have seen on this channel, I mean, we're in June by now, so you have seen the number of gigantic, ambitious studies, military, social, biographical, or otherwise, of the Civil War in 2019 has been extremely small. And there have been previous years, there have been years that I've seen where you could get 10 books like this in the course of a year. Not so much in 2019, so I will take what I can get, absolutely. All right, so that's Vicksburg, that's October. And then we've got the box. There's a box, and then there are two mystery packages. So we're going to do the mystery packages last here. So we'll see what the box is. Probably a finished copy of some kind. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. Sorry, Bean. Oh, fantastic. Okay, you know, I was actually wondering where this was. I'm such a princess. I'm such a prima donna. But I was actually starting to wonder where this thing was. And here it is. Okay, so the finished copy is getting to me unbelievably late. I have already made heavy inroads into the advanced copy, but I wanted the finished copy because a book like this, you need, if you're me, if you're going to review it, if you're going to read it critically, you need the bibliography. You need all of the critical apparatus in place. That's what's going to determine a lot of how you approach your review. And the advanced copy didn't have that, so I've been sort of waiting. Well, you should probably want to know what I'm talking about, don't you? This is by Jeffrey Parker, and this is Emperor, A New Life of Charles V. And there you can see the finished copy is a lovely thing. It's got the gold embossed letters and everything. And this is about the Emperor Charles V, who lived from 1500 to 1558 and was the ruler of Spain, Germany, and the Netherlands, and much of Italy and Central and South America. And the elusive nature of the man, his relentless travel, and his control of his own image, together with the complexity of governing the world's first transatlantic empire, has made him a challenging subject for biographers. And in this book, to be published on June 25th, it's cutting it a little close, but that's all right. Jeffrey Parker draws on sources written in Dutch, French, German, Italian, Latin, and Spanish to create a masterful and groundbreaking new portrait of this extraordinary leader. And the bit that I have read certainly does that. Certainly does that. It's so obviously I mean, the part that I've read so far, unless there's a major change in the third act, the part that I've read so far, I will read this. This goes to the head of the list. But the parts that I've read so far are obvious. It's pretty obvious that this is aiming to be and will almost certainly become the definitive life of this person in English. So that's a couple of major works of history back to back. And then we have these last two. And they are strange. I have a feeling that they are gifts from you. And I want to stress ahead of time that although I'm incredibly grateful, the gifts really should go from me to you, not from you to me. You're doing me the favor by listening to me natter about books 3 times a day. So what have we got in this first one? Okay. Wow, all right, I did not expect this. Boy, it's in perfect condition. This is Stephen R. Donaldson. The other day I got the second part of this book, or the first part of this book. I got the first part of this book in a mass market, and I said when I showed it to you that the Brattle would provide that I would get a second copy soon enough. And one of you, you know who you are, thank you very much, actually sent me A Man Rides Through in mass market. This is the second part of Mordant's Need by Stephen R. Donaldson, who is going to be much talked about in your subscription feed starting in July. In July, me and a group of other really good booktubers are all going to read The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen R. Donaldson. I'm very pleased to report we're going to read all 6 books, the first trilogy and the second trilogy of Thomas Covenant. So by December, you're going to be sick of lepers. And this is nothing to do with Thomas Covenant. This was a 2-part series that Donaldson wrote that I've been meaning to revisit for years. You've seen on this channel that every time I get a hardcover, big fat hardcover, gigantic things, whether it's part 1 or part 2, I always get part 1 and wait for part 2. But before I get part 2, I've re-given away or sold or mailed part 1. And then I get part 2, and I think, well, now I need to find part 1, and the same thing, the ad cycle all over again. I'm going to keep hold of the 2 mass market copies that I have now. All right, so I was right. The first of those mystery packages was a gift. Now we'll move on to the second one, which I don't know. The wrapping paper says thanks. And publishers never thank. So they might thank me in private, but they don't. So this, I think, also comes from one of you. What is this? Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, all right, this is not... No wonder it says thanks on the wrapping paper. That's a bit much for one of you to go to that link. No, this is another example of the thing that I was talking about. Remember the other day, I was talking about this Stephen R. Donaldson read-along. And I mentioned that I thought the Brattle will provide, the Brattle's a used bookstore here in Boston. They have an enormous turnover. I thought, sure, that before July's read-along started of Thomas Covenant, I would find a copy of Lord Foulsbane, the first book in the series, this thing. Even though it was cutting it close, and even though I would need it, It's not a question of just, you know, like Morden's Need, where I'm just hoping to find a copy someday. I actually need a copy of Lord Foulsbane to do this read-along. And I was perfectly content to do that. And then I thought, no, you know what, 90% of the people who get books in the country, or maybe 70% of the people who get books in the country, what they do when they're in a situation like that is they go on Amazon and buy a $1 copy or $2 copy. And it's as simple as that. And the reason why I haven't done that is not only because I have the Brattle, so you know, the pressure is off there. It's not like I live, you know, in Oxtooth, Mississippi, where there isn't a bookstore for 100 miles. I have access to a steady stream of secondhand books. But it's not only that. Another reason why I don't do it is because people lie on their listings of used books on Amazon and everywhere else. They lie. They say it's in good condition when it's falling apart. And I didn't want to go through that. I've been through that. I've had books get to me in 2 pieces. And I email the seller and say, your book got to me in 2 pieces. And they say, oh, well, sorry about that. How about I send you something else? And I decided to put all that to the test and just order a copy of Lord Foulsbane on Amazon. And it was quick, and it was easy, and it was chilling, because it showed me what brick and mortar bookstores are up against, and there's no competition for it. None whatsoever. There's no way in the world, at least in terms of books. The minute I saw that process, that I snapped my fingers, literally, and in 2 days the book was here to me in perfect condition for nothing, and so easy that I didn't even have to think about doing it. The minute I saw that, I had the chilling realization that if Barnes & Noble as a chain of bookstores, or Books A Million, or whatever, if they're going to survive, they're going to survive some other way. They're not going to survive by getting books to people, which was the time-honored, you know, practice of bookstores. That was their reason for being, was that they got books to people who didn't have access to them otherwise, or a huge rigmarole. And so I tried it again. I tried it again because I didn't have any of the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. I didn't have any of them. So I tried it again. I went on Amazon and I found a box set of the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant in mass market paperback, so that I'd be sure to get the Darrow K. Sweet covers. And it was a pittance, and I ordered it, and here it is. And you see a tiny demonstration of what I was worried about, because this is not a box set. There is no box with these. That was simply a lie on the part of the person who posted these. So they will get a fairly sharp email from me. I don't really care about the price. The price was similar to other prices. The reason I clicked on this is because it was the only one that said box set, and that was a lie. There is no box here. There was no box in the package. But the books themselves are in fine shape. So this is The Wounded Land, The One Tree, and The White Gold Wielders. This is the second Chronicle of Thomas Covenant. Right, so it turned out to be a Stephen R. Donaldson heavy email or mail haul, but at least now I have all the Donaldson books. I am ready to tackle Donaldson with all of my co-hosts for the rest of the year. All right, so that is it. Very satisfying final mail haul of the week, that's for sure. So we have this gorgeous new hardcover of Emperor by Jeffrey Parker, about Charles V. Someone who most readers aren't going to know anything about him. They're not going to want to read an 800-page biography of him, but I will eat it right up. And I bet there are a couple of you who can tell me why. And then a gigantic new book on Vicksburg coming out in October. Then Thinking Like a Parrot, a natural history of parrots in the wild, and with a skew towards their amiability. And then This Land by Christopher Ketchum, his nonfiction debut. Good for him. About the West, about the stewing problem spot of the West. Then we have the second Chronicle of Thomas Covenant, The Unbeliever, and A Man Rides Through, Part 2 of Morden's Need. So I've got all of Stephen R. Donaldson in mass market now. And there you go. That is the last mail haul of the week. How much fun is that? All right, so sorry for the late posting, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.